Kimani Wamatangi, Senator, Kiambu County. Just before the break, we discussed that whole polygamy debate. It gets very interesting. But now let's take a look at the other big headlines. On the dailies, bankers fined 113 million shillings for theft and lies. Even before we get to the politics, and it gets very interesting on the Daily Nation. Let's start off from here. Bankers fined 113 million for theft and lies. The issues that have bedeviled the National Bank of Kenya go back decades. Yes, there's a bank that has suffered quite a lot. Yet to see, even in this day and age, in the new millennium, this bank still suffering. Straight from the management.
I think the banking industry plays a very critical role in any economy, and particularly on this. We've seen many banks going down with the Kenyans' money. We saw Chase Bank, we've seen Imperial Bank, and the bulk of the problems is to do with the governorship issue. And really this goes to Central Bank, because Central Bank is the one that regulates banks. And it must be sleeping on the job, because it is to ensure the supervisory role. It regulates. So when these banks are going down because of governance issue, where is that element of monitoring and evaluation? And when you come to National Bank, which is wholly owned by the government, the biggest depositors when it comes to National Bank is NSSF. NSSF, these are the Kenyans' money, the money that they want to use in old age. So if at all NSSF doesn't do a proper feasibility study in terms of where to invest, this is where we're going to have a problem. And it's not just, I don't think it's just the management. Maybe it's an issue of a conspiracy. Because really, if why is it that NBK has been having all these problems? It doesn't have problems when it comes to deposits, because the fact that it's government, and NSSF is actually the leading shareholding when it comes to this issue of NBK. So any Kenyan, particularly these managers, if they're the ones who have been on the front line in terms of frauds, I think we need some action. Stern action must be taken against them, because this is going to affect Kenyans, particularly those in the old age who have invested through NSSF, and they must be forced to pay back the money. So again, Central Bank should actually pull up their socks in terms of monitoring, in terms of regulating this banking industry. Yes, Senator, of course, what Chris Omalo has broken it down to actually show how exactly the common mwananchi could suffer from this. Because yes, such a headline could be dismissed that, yeah, another bank, their money they've stolen, but when it comes to National Bank, this is Kenyans' money.
Yes, absolutely.
And NSSF.
It's important to point that out for Kenyans to know precisely that other than NSSF, and that's correct what Mheshimiwa Omalo says, actually most of the depositors in National Bank are government agencies, meaning that these are taxpayers' money anyway in the bulk. If you probably compare the portfolio of National Bank of Kenya between what deposits they receive from the private sector and government agencies, the bulk of their money is government agencies. That tells you that all money that is banked by government agencies belong to the people of Kenya. Because the government does not do business. And so the question that one would want to persistently ask is, you have, and remember, this conviction is not by a court of law. Sometimes courts are accused of either being influenced or being unfair. Now this is a fine imposed by a regulator, the Capital Markets Authority. And that tells you that it is a team and board of professionals who regulate, coming up with that decision, which in most cases then for them to come up with that kind of decision should carry some weight. And then the question one may want to be asking is this, Fred. If you're saying that you have established that somebody has siphoned off $1 billion, if you fine those people 113 million, have you remedied the situation?
And
maybe that's what you'd be asking. Yes. And as you've said, it's collectively. And the question you'd want to follow that up with is, what about recovery? Because you are saying that these monies were paid irregularly to people you have been able to establish for you to come up with a fine. So why doesn't the regulator go the whole hog and say, fine, we have established that $1 billion is paid irregularly. So we are recovering the $1 billion from the known people who have received it unfairly or irregularly, because you're not supposed to have gotten it in the first place. You know, then that would bring a sense of justice to the people, because the first port of call is am I going to get back what I lost as a taxpayer?
Yes.
And then lastly, you'd also want to ask yourself, what prudence is employed when you are having these people in office, and this misdemeanor, the stealing has not happened in a day. It was not a bank break, whereby you say the billion went in a day. So you're asking, as Chris was saying, what has been happening in the long term for all this money to have been stolen? So I think we have to say yes. CMA have done a good job. If finally there's what it boils down to, but a lot much more.
Much more definitely needs to be done.
And especially, to banks who receive a lot of public money, like KCB, I must say, for quite a while now, has really reformed. There was time KCB was worrying all of us as Kenyans. There was time it was a bit shaky. I think sometimes there in the mid-90s to the end of the 90s there. But now you can see they professionalized, and it's now a steady and firm bank. And I believe that
the story continues on page 4 of the Standard. A former National Bank of Kenya Managing Director Munir Sheikh has been fined 112.8 million shillings alongside 4 other ex-board. Munir has been given a financial penalty of 5 million shillings for ineffective management of bank and misrepresentation of financial statements. CMA has also disqualified him from holding a board position in any publicly listed company or working for a licensed person for a period of 3 years. And probably this kind of indictment could trigger some other investigations from the investigating arms of government. Well, let's move on from banking fraud now and to some politics. And the Standard, at least, the Daily Nation has that politics on the front pages. On one hand, the big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, "Stop it, Raila warns Matiang'i on judges." Now, this stems from CS Fred Matiang'i's appearance before Parliamentary Committee on Security and Administration. Now, Raila Odinga says in a hard-hitting statement, he accuses the minister of being reckless, unethical, and irresponsible. But Fort Kenya's Halwale tells the furious Odinga, relax, we told you so. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. The story continues on page 4. You are, when Boniface Halwale is a member of your party. Have we gotten there that now anything Raila Odinga says, Fort Kenya does not agree with?
No. I think, Mike, that Senator Boni Halwale is my deputy party leader. But whatever he says does not mean that is the party position. I think in this context, whatever he says, that is his own opinion. And indeed, he's entitled to his own opinion. But coming to the sentiments of Raila Amolo Odinga, Matiang'i, the late Vice President Omaro Kijana said, he used to say Raila mania, Raila phobia. I've seen in Matiang'i case, they said Matiang'i phobia, Matiang'i mania. You find there a section of some people who are so proud and happy of Matiang'i. But you find others who look at Matiang'i differently. And looking at what Matiang'i said, to me, indeed, that was very reckless. First, he comes from the executive. And we have the principle of separation of powers. And when you look at this topic of separation of powers, that is between the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, you must bring in the principle of the checks and balances. There's no way Matiang'i can come and attack judiciary and say, that term particular, it was demeaning. And the judiciary is supposed to be independent. Whatever decisions the judiciary had made, if he was against it, should have gone through the court of appeal. And when you look at on the issue of Miguna, there were several court orders that were disobeyed by the executive. And the executive must respect the rule of law. This issue of disobeying the court orders and doing whatever you want, it should not be allowed. If they had something contrary, to me, they should have gone to the court of appeal. But what Matiang'i said, to come and attack the judiciary, that was very, very wrong. We must be able to condemn it. Remember, courts are the ones with unlimited jurisdiction. When it comes to separation of powers, Parliament is there to legislate, is there to enact laws. Then the executive is supposed to implement. Then the judiciary, it is specifically there for purposes of interpretation of the law. So they are doing their work, and their judgment are based on the evidence that was submitted before court. So to me, I condemn that. It was very reckless. It was not good enough for him to have attacked the judiciary, and also coming to attack the late Kajwang. The African society, it is very unethical. It is very un-African for you to attack somebody who cannot come out to defend himself. In government, when you talk about the principle of succession, there's that element of collective responsibility. This was a cabinet minister. So just like the way he's doing, and whatever decisions is coming up, the policies is coming up with, another minister, when you come on board, you'll assume that was a government responsibility, and you cannot just come out and say that this aspect was fraudulent. How do we know it was fraudulent? They should have gone to court, maybe, to provide evidence to show that this issue was an illegality, it was obtained fraudulently, so that the court can make a determination. But you cannot just come out and attack your colleague, and for heaven's sake, somebody who is already gone is with God. And I find that one very reckless.
Senator, a lot can be said about that appearance before the National Assembly's Committee on Security and Administration. The fact that the three gentlemen who appeared, that's C.S. Fred Matiang'i, Gordon Kihalangwa, the immigration PS, and Joseph Boynet, have previously been ordered or summoned before before courts on several occasions, but they failed to appear. Yes, it appears they decided to use Parliament instead to give their side of the story. The fact that they got so much time, the fact that they got to lecture MPs for so much time live on TV, there are those who think that that is a misuse of the Houses of Parliament for those officers to come use that kind of platform to attack the judiciary.
Well, Fred, let me first say that it is important to recognize that the Constitution itself allows and gives Parliament the power to summon, invite anyone, whoever they are, to come before a committee of Parliament and be able to give the evidence on a matter that is of national importance, or that is of importance for that matter to the process of legislation. And so given the provisions of that article of the Constitution, they would rightly have been there. And remember that at this time when they were invited, they were not either appearing there when they had a matter that was still pending in court. Remember, they had already been fined, and that matter
they've already been convicted for
rested that way, and so they were rightfully there before the House of Parliament. Should they have been airing their views there in Parliament? Absolutely, yes. I mean, you know, when you are there, you can say whatever it is that you want to have. You enjoy the rights and privileges of Parliament at that particular time. So you air your views and give your concerns. It's upon the members of Parliament listening to you then to make a decision as to is what you're saying, you know, congruent with the circumstances and the facts. So having said that, then, you know, I would say, by the way, Fred, because of my name Wamatangi, I have been many times called Matiangi. and so let me first you know, say to my friends and
you
who call me
Matiangi,
that they should know that there's Matangi and Matiangi. But it is unfortunate, if you ask me, that we would be discussing this light on comments about or from various leaders based on an event or a series of events that have been fomented and created by a cantankerous individual like Miguna. Because you see, this all is a response to a dramatized scenario whereby you can never tell or even know what was true and what was not true. If this was a scenario, if this was a situation, a circumstance of real national importance or rather it was of national importance, but something that is credibly useful to this country, then one can apply their minds to discuss about it. But if it is about the drama of a person who has even no respect or patriotism for his own country, because, you know, from where I stand as an individual, Fred, I do not see how myself as Wamatangi would go out there to a foreign country like Canada or United States and whatever and honor them in their own country, give my travel documents and so on. But when I come to my own country, I want to treat my own country and my own countrymen with contempt. That I'll come and create drama, I'll heighten the doubts as to the kind of security you have around your airports just because I want to be dramatic. That's what I'm saying. So if those are the circumstances under which you'd be asking me to comment on what should an officer of government who is one either given that job so that he can protect the very security of the people or the very integrity, if you're asking me that I would be commenting so that I can leverage between what a leader would be saying, for example, like what you've seen on today's paper, what a leader is saying as a back and forth to somebody who was reacting under those circumstances, then I'll tell you, we would be playing into a big scenario. Yes. And the reason why...
Senator, it is one thing to do your job as a state officer. It is totally another to use a platform of one arm of government to attack the other arm of government. And that's exactly the question I'm asking. Now, these three individuals have been convicted of contempt of court. They've failed to appear in court to explain themselves. Yeah. They failed to answer, to respond to summons from the courts, as it were. 13 court orders have gone unattended to, or rather disregarded by the three individuals. Them appearing or using the platform of the National Assembly, something beaming live on TV stations, to actually attack the judiciary, don't you think that that is a problem in itself, away from Miguna?
It is just precisely because of that that you would have listened to me. Then when you listen,
Miguna is not on the headlines.
Then when you listen to me, I would be telling you precisely why I hold the position that I hold. You see, when somebody is in the situation, for example, like these people are, and remember, when you have a cabinet secretary, my friend Fred Indemoli, you take oath of office using the Constitution, and you say that I take this oath that I will protect this country or this Constitution in these circumstances under this job. And then when you have those kind of circumstances, you are put in a situation whereby you have to act, one, for the good and interest of your country, or you have to play to the whims of a certain individual. And that is my problem. Because if you follow the true circumstance, and it is my very belief that court orders should be obeyed. Yes. It is my very belief that we must respect the courts. It is my absolute belief to the core also that when courts act, they also must act in fairness and also in light of what circumstances are that are prevailing. Because as we say all the time, and lawyers will tell you this all the time, the court or the law does not operate in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Okay. Those circumstances are known.
Do you think that Parliament or the National Assembly Committee was misused by these three gentlemen?
It was abused. You know, under Article 125 of the Constitution, it says that a parliamentary committee has powers to summon anybody, anywhere for purposes of evidence. And the parliamentary committee has powers like that of the High Court. To me, I think what transpired before the parliamentary committee, it was this was an abuse. In fact, the court order, and I want to tell my brother here, who is my very good friend, over the weekend when I was in my village, I went to a church, and during when a pastor was preaching, actually it was not a church, it was a funeral. I attended some professor's funeral in Cherengani, and the pastor in his preachings, he was actually condemning that act on Miguna. The issue here is about the court order. When you look at the chronological events, Miguna's passport was destroyed when the court ordered that they must give submit to the courts the passport. What happened? It was perforated. This, to me, this is impunity. And after the court order that Miguna should be availed in court, what happened? He was deported. This was quite unfair. Miguna is a Kenyan. The court order was very clear that he must be availed in court unconditionally. This is what we are saying to Matiang'i. He must have done the other work well. But when it comes to the court orders, we cannot compromise on that, because this is a recipe of chaos. We're going to have anarchy in this country if the executive is going to be on the front line of disobeying the court orders. What are you going to expect from the common man?
What about him branding judicial officers an evil clique?
I really condemn that. I started with that condemning, because as judiciary works differently. Of course, I spoke about the issue of separation of powers, and I went further. You know, when you are here, we're also educating other Kenyans that the three arms of government, they work independently, and this is the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. The role of the legislature is to enact laws, and these laws are supposed to be implemented by the executive, and these laws are supposed to be interpreted by the court. That's why many times when we pass some laws, and if the laws are unconstitutional, you go to court for interpretation, and the court will order for us to repeal those sections which are contrary to the constitution. So each has its own mandate, and for the court to make a determination, that determination was based on the law, based on the evidence. So it is important, whether you are a judiciary, whether you are the executive or legislature, you must respect the court orders. So whatever is said about the judiciary is very unfair, and we want to condemn it. We want to condemn it, and we're telling Matiang'i, please do your work, but you must always respect the judiciary.
The branding, the calling of names on any state official, be it from the judiciary, legislature, or the executive. Well, we've had them called rogue judges before by Jubilee. Now, a member of the executive, CS, calls them an evil clique. Should this be the kind of language between different arms of government?
Two things. First, I wanted to clear with what my good friend here says. One, it is true that the three arms of government are supposed to be independent. But the thing to remember is that the requirement and inference of law really is that although they are independent, they're also interdependent. That's why they are all three arms of the same government. They're not supposed to operate as though they are the planets in the solar system. Now, lastly, is really, I do not think, Fred, on this debate this morning, that we want to go into the merits or demerits of the entire Miguna debacle, that the court said this or this was done. Because if you want to go,
it's not on the headlines.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I've said. So as my friend here tries to make the case of what he wants to say, let him not say that the passport was done, this or this happened. If we go there, then there's a lot of stories to be told, and it will take a long time, and it is messy to say so. But lastly, is on what you have called the name calling. You know, the language, the choice of words that one would choose to refer to individuals is really personal. That's really personal. There are no words that are reserved for describing either rogue judges or reserved for errant politicians or whatever. These are all terminology that people would use. You know, to me as an individual, as a leader in this country, what matters to me is really, you know, when you stand on the pedestal of the platform that you've been given as a leader to show the way, what do you stand for? Do you want to stand for the truth? Do you want to stand for what counts and makes a better society, or do you want to play to the gallery? For me, that is my departure with most of the views that you find, for example, held by my good friend here, Honorable Chris Wamalo. You know, if there is no way, Fred, that you can originate any action from either fraud or lies or cheating or you know, whatever misbehavior, and then you expect that at the end of it all there, you're going to emerge with a legitimate or clean claim. I mean, anything that you foment from ab initio, when you start, and then you started from a position of you want to lie, it is not truthful, it is intended to have this result because you want to, you know, to portray a certain image. When you get there, you cannot claim sainthood.
Would you, for example, term any judicial officer or a group as an evil clique?
No, why would I? I have no interest. So as the person, that's what I'm saying. You know, that's really a personal choice of words. You know, if you tell me to describe this group of journalists, I could call them, you know, brilliant young men, or I could call them misguided elements, whatever you want. But the point is, You choose your own words. But the core, you know, we
so you do not necessarily disagree with the choice of words
I mean, it is his own choice of words. That's his own description.
That's why
it has no position in law. What one would be asking, irrespective of descriptions of people, what one would be asking is, from what we have seen, if you are judging a situation, from what we saw, from the day this drama started until the day it has ended, have we acted right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Our time is up, but we have to mention some of these headlines. Raila said to be AU Special Envoy. That's a big one on the front page of the Star, and that's not in any other newspaper. Because yes, the mention of Raila on the Standard is about him being the keynote speaker at the Devolution Conference in Kakamega later this month. On the Daily Nation, it's about him responding to Matiang'i's appearance there. But there's also another headline on the Daily Nation. Ruto allies go all out for his 2022 bid. Deputy President William Ruto's allies have started massive stealth campaigns for his 2022 presidential bid, taking advantage of the fissures in the opposition and the perceived shifting of the ground following the truce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Have you felt this move?
You know, Winston Churchill said this, that successful people will see an opportunity in a difficult situation. Those are optimists, and pessimists will always see difficulty in every opportunity. William Samoei Ruto took advantage of the handshake and he ran away with it. There was this narrative that William Ruto was not even involved in those things of the handshake between His Excellency the President and His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. But much that he saw is a difficult situation, but because of his optimism, he moved quickly. Remember, he went to Coast, and some of the MPs from NASA, they actually declared William Samoei Ruto that 2022 is for him to take. He has gone to Western, he has gone all over. And remember, the same William Ruto said that when NASA was still in workshops and seminars to come up with a presidential candidate, the Jubilee was already ahead, they had a lineup. He's the same William Ruto you saw the other day in the opinion poll. He's already leading. So he knows what he's doing. So it is true. Much that he has changed his strategy of that aggressiveness, but he has his own people. You can see he's already in the campaign mood.
Do you see him as the leading presidential candidate?
We saw the opinion poll. And
away from that opinion poll?
As we speak right now, you know what's happening in NASA as a coalition. Obviously, he's already ahead. Okay. It goes without saying. Okay. On our NASA side, we've not even decided who is going to be the presidential candidate. There's a lot of wrangling.
Senator,
call a spade a spade.
Senator, the fact that Ruto is already out campaigning for 2022, not everyone from Central Kenya, not everyone from the Mount Kenya region is comfortable. There have been discussions, there have been mentions of this. I could mention that church service in Runda about a week or two ago when Governor of Nairobi, Mike Sonko, mentioned the fact that leaders from that particular region have been meeting, trying to ensure that this doesn't happen. What do you say to this?
Well, I think those are two issues you've introduced with the same breath, and if you wanted us to discuss those two issues, I think you'd have to set aside time.
Which one in particular don't you want to discuss today?
The one you've spoken about, the night meetings and so on. But let me try to deal with the two in one shot. One on the issue of the deputy president and his position. And I must say, one, you've heard him loud and clear everywhere he goes now. He's telling people, what I want to concentrate on right now is on service delivery to the people of Kenya between now and 2022. And when it comes to that time, I'll speak for it. I'll go for my bid, the way I should. But right now, let me deliver. That's been his message. Two, let me say that as a leader, as a politician, if you look at his trajectory, at the path he's followed up to where he is, I mean, he's somebody who has shown that he knows his game. He knows his thing, and he's put his pieces in place correctly up to where he is right now. And so, if you want to have the debate about does he look like somebody who knows where he wants to go, the answer would be yes. And does he look like he's got a good shot at the presidency in 2022? The answer is yes. Now, if he can keep that focus, and that would be my position. If he keeps that focus, which he has done in the past and is likely to do if he goes the way he's going, then he's got a very, very, very good shot at it. Now, do people in Mount Kenya feel comfortable and comfortable about it? You know, there's a lot of speculation and talk about this, but I'll tell you this as a leader from Mount Kenya. You know, the people of Mount Kenya are smart people. We are people who know where we want to go and where we want to be. Mm-hmm. We know our politics. Mm-hmm. And unlike what most people have been thinking, that we are waiting for somebody to inject us or to show us where to go, we know where we want to go and we know where we are going to be. We are going to be making our decisions, and I want to assure you one thing. The people of Mount Kenya are smart people. And in the formation of 2022, we are not going to be losers. We are not going to be standing anywhere. We are going to be losers.
Have you made the decision yet?
So what I would just want to tell you right now is that let there be no speculation that we are saying we are comfortable, we are whatever. We are very comfortable right now. And we are perfectly in Jubilee. You know, with the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is the president right now, leading the country. His deputy is William Ruto. We are family with them. So if you want the answer about our 2022 plan, yes, our 2022 plan is very simple. Live through it right now. Make sure that in Jubilee, we have to deliver what we have to deliver. At that time, you wait for our decision. We make smart decisions. We have not been known to do this, and we are not going to be losing.
Senator is not is not being decisive.
Yes, briefly.
And history has shown that the Mount Kenya votes, they only vote for one of their own.
Well,
Raila said Kibaki tosha.
Okay.
You never.
But Chris, you can only speak on behalf of the people of Kimilili.
Gentlemen,
our time is up, unfortunately. But I would speak for the people of Central Kenya.
Also Deputy Minority Whip in the
we know where we are going, my brother.
And Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu County. Thank you, gentlemen, for helping us look at the headlines this morning.